Does everybody have a handout, a package?
Everybody signed in and give me the back.
So, it is true, you might be asking yourself, why would they show us the slides and then like give it to us? Isn't that going to mean I don't have to write anything down? While it's true, you already have the exact handout of the slides. Like Miss Reap and myself are going to be giving you golden nuggets of information that will be crucial to succeeding on the ACT. So if I were you, I would start dictating every single thing that we say verbatim. Okay? I see Mr. Banowitz is not writing
that
it.
means writing it down.
Oh, ASAP. There we go. Hey, welcome. Thanks for spending an hour with us. Just to preview this lesson, we only have a few slides, as you can tell from the packet. It should be pretty general, pretty simple information. However, some good tips to help hopefully improve your score on the reading section, at least with by a few points, just by following those instructions. After we go through those slides, you're going to take a portion of an ACT reading practice test. So you're going to be doing 2 readings, answering 20 questions, and then we're going to show you how to take like what you got as a percentage, and then translate that to a score out of a 36 for the ACT. Make sense? All right, let's go on this journey, shall we? You go, Ms. Reed.
So if you didn't know, the ACT reading portion is 40 questions in 35 minutes. That's approximately, break it down, 52 seconds per question, which does not seem like a lot when you know that you have 4 passages that go along with that. But we're going to give you some strategies to help get you through that test.
Number 2, make sure you're working on the test booklet the whole time. As you guys have been preparing in your classes together, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but some people are very quick readers, and some people answer questions more quickly than others. That leads to people getting through all 40 questions, and then they like to try to lay their heads down and sleep or stare off into space. However, research shows us that if instead of doing those avoidance behaviors, if we go back and take another look at a reading that was maybe difficult to us the first time, that we can, and this goes like beyond the reading section, like if you maybe go and look back at your math, you might notice that you did some arithmetic incorrectly, right? So working in the test booklet the whole 40 minutes, not just a portion of that 40 minutes, will be abundantly helpful.
This is my favorite tip. One that I wish I would have known when I was taking the ACT, which I took many, many times, so I'm right there with you. Circle your answers in the test booklet first, and then go and put them all in your answer sheet. And for the reading section, I tell my students, do it by passage, so that way, if you feel like you're running out of time, you don't have to do all 40 questions at once, transferring them onto that answer bubble sheet, but do it 10 questions at a time. So circle them all in the test booklet, and then go and transfer them. And that prevents you from having to flip back and forth with every single question you do. And it does save time. It doesn't seem like it will save that much time, but every second counts on this test. As you see, you only have 52 seconds per question, so every second does count.
And the last thing on this slide just says, at the 5-minute warning, or like a time around there that you feel comfortable with. Not only would I recommend like listening to the proctor when he or she announces that 5-minute warning, but like wear a watch, or look up at the clock and pay attention to like at what time the session starts and at what time it should end. Usually it will be written on the board, like what time it's going to end, but I like having the watch and knowing exactly how much time I have left. At that 5-minute warning, or at some point shortly thereafter, I would start guessing on all the ones that you've left blank. The best way to go about this is to pick a go-to letter. I always pick B. You can pick either A
You, your children, find a place to go. You cannot be just wandering around. So if you have no place to go in this building, then you need to go home. Thank you.
You can pick either one, A through D, but on every one that you go and guess, you should get, and research tells us this, that if you guess the same answer for every one that you guess on, you'll get the most points back for those guesses. That makes sense?
And with the reading section, if you are leaving some blank to try to come back to them later, what I would suggest doing is go back to them before you move on to the next passage, because once you move on to the next passage, that first one's going to be out of your brain. So if you go back to it later, it's going to be useless. So before you even move on. And then you go to the next passage and do the same thing. If it's a question that you know you're not going to ever get, it doesn't matter how much time you spend on it, don't waste time sitting there and thinking about, what's mood? I have no idea what mood is. Maybe if I sit here and stare at it longer, maybe I'll figure it out. You're not going to. So just guess. That same letter that you picked to use throughout, put that down and just move on to save you time. So we've already given you some really important strategies. You can tell me one that we've given you. Let's review. Circle on the book. Don't sleep. Work the whole time and work in the test booklet. What else? Pick one letter that is your guess letter. Yes.
Best students ever. You guys are great. Okay, I'll take this one.
Okay.
There's going to be the same not the same 4 readings, but the same 4 genres of passages every time you take the ACT. Those genres are up here. You will have a literary narrative, so probably pretty similar to the fictional stuff that you read in your English classes. You'll have a social sciences. It's like usually like some type of historical piece, nonfiction. Humanities. Usually this is something written by a philosopher, very deep and mind-blowing stuff there, also nonfiction. And then natural science, which is like just science, okay? If you guys are with us in the practice ACT sessions that we're doing here at school at night, that natural science piece we read about galaxies and like what happens when galaxies collide with one another, okay? So it's going to test you on a variety of not only reading skills, but your ability to read a variety of different genres.
Sometimes it's just, the narrative, it may be labeled something else, sometimes it's labeled prose fiction or something different, but it's always going to be the same, and it's always in the same order.
Yeah.
This order.
That being said, on the information that you guys have gotten back from your January practice ACTs, you know which one of these 4 is your strength, okay? And then which one of these is not your strength. Let's say if you open up your ACT packet and you notice that your prose fiction or your narrative is the first reading in there. If that is your weakness, it doesn't make sense for you to start there. You want to start with your strength. So let's say Braden Harris here opens up his ACT, and the first thing in there is narrative. But his strongest section is natural science, right there. It might be the 4th reading in the packet. So he would say, I know, because I went to that after-school reading session with Ms. Reed and Mr. Wilson, that I should skip straight to the narrative, or not the narrative, the natural science piece. So he flips all the way to the back, and he'll start there. Okay, because it makes the most sense to start, like, not only with a fresh mind, but use your most amount of, or the largest chunk of time on the area that is your strength.
Why does that make sense? Why would you do that in school more?
Well, because not only, like, are you going to be applying, like your brain fresh from a break to that information that you already excel at, but let's say if Braden waits to the end, to the last section, to do the passes that he performs on the best, you might run out of time and then kind of screw himself over by not doing that one first, right? So maybe he'll only get halfway through, like get 6 of the questions out of the 10 answered for natural science, and then have to stop. Because I'm telling you.
Because you're more likely to get answer questions correctly on the section that you know you perform best with. So you want to do that first, so you have enough time to do that. Why would you save that section for last when you're running out of time and you're more likely to get those? I don't know.
As well. We have feedback from the back. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, if you know the section and it works logically with your brain, you work a lot faster too. So, and you want to get the most questions correct. So, the faster you do it, and the higher chance you have to get it right. Why not start there? You just get more and correct.
Very good. I appreciate the support, and we welcome all of your feedback. I like to think of this as a family. Any questions? Other questions? Quinn brought up a good one. Any other questions out of this slide?
And again, these are always in the same order, so you know going into it what your order could be. So no surprise. Annotate. Annotate. What do we mean by annotate? First of all, do you know what the word means? What? I hope so. What does it mean?
Take notes.
Writing on the text, right? Writing on the text. Now, this may be a little bit different than what we ask you to do in your normal English classes, whether it's American or what you've done in the past. Because when we ask you to annotate, we need to dive in and dig into that text, right? It's not exactly what we need for the ACT. Because ACT questions, there's going to be two types of questions. This is something you should write down. The first type is one that they call fetch questions. Those are questions like on the second bullet point. Do you notice a question directing you to a particular line? In line 18, you go and fetch the answer from that line. The second type of question is an inference type question. They'll ask you to infer. However, on the ACT, they say infer, but they don't really mean infer. You can only infer what is directly given to you in the text. So if you went to that ACT section, or ACT parent session, this is the example that I really liked it. The text says, my goldfish died yesterday. What can you infer from the text? The goldfish died. Yes. No. It doesn't say that.
They want black and white.
Black and white. You cannot infer that the speaker is sad, because it doesn't say that if they're happy. You can infer that the goldfish was alive 2 days ago. Okay. You can infer that the speaker had a goldfish. That's true. That's a good point. It's a good point. You gotta be careful with that. So only infer exactly what is said in the text. So as far as annotating goes, I'm not talking about digging deep and analyzing, because they're not going to ask you questions based on that. I mean things like, first of all, read the questions first, so you know what to look for when you go and read. Why do we want to read the questions first? Why does it matter? One, so we know what to look for. Two, how many tests have you taken already by this point in the ACT? Couple. Two. Yes. You're tired. What happens when you have readings and you start getting tired? You stop paying attention, maybe you fall asleep, you zone out, you realize, I don't know what I just read for the past 4 minutes. This gives you a purpose for reading. If you know what to look for, it gives you a purpose, and so you're more likely to stay zoned in to what the reading is saying. It also allows you, when you read the question beforehand, if you read something and you think back to that question, you can mark it. So that way when you go back to answer the questions, you know exactly where to go. Like for example, if it's telling you to go to a line, go to that line and mark the question number. Question 24 says in line 18, go to line 18 and write 24 next to it. That way when you go to the questions, you can go right back to it and know exactly where to go instead of wasting those precious seconds that we keep talking about trying to find that line again, or trying to find that part. You can also write a 3 to 4 word summary. Not a huge, big, lengthy summary, which isn't a summary at all, but you'll be confused. A 3 to 4 word summary next to each paragraph, so that way, same reason, you know exactly where to look on those questions. When they ask you something, you know where to go back to in the text rather than wasting time trying to find that part again. Does that make sense to everyone?
All right. The next couple of slides just focus on like the difference between the questions that you're going to get for a natural science and a social science reading versus a humanities or a prose fiction reading or a narrative reading. Okay. Sciences and social sciences or social studies pieces are going to focus more on like the main idea. Okay, a lot of this stuff is going to be introduced to you and then concluded in the introduction and the conclusion paragraphs. Okay, so like just as your English teachers here at school tell you to introduce your claim or introduce your topic and then make a claim in the introduction paragraph and then to write essentially the same information in the conclusion except stated differently. A lot of people in writings like this are going to do the same techniques. Okay. So, those main idea type questions, which you're going to see more of those frequently on these types of readings, that's where you should look for that information first. Pretty simple. Questions there? Kind of makes sense.
And then for the literature passage and the humanities passages, they're going to focus more on things like the development of the writing, things like we see mood, tone, plot points, etc. But again, they're not asking you to analyze it deeply like we normally do when we ask you in our classes. They're asking you to only get the information as stated in the text, okay, based off the evidence. And one thing Mr. Whitmore and I have talked about, especially with the narrative, if you've noticed before each passage, they give you a little tiny blurb. It'll first say the type of passage it is, and then it'll say like who it's written by. But on the narrative section, they usually give you something in addition, something about the passage or the characters. And we talked about it in my class and how there are even questions about that tiny little blurb. That's not even really a part of the passage, but it comes before. So that is worth reading. What's not worth reading on the reading section are the directions. The directions will tell you, read these passages, answer the questions. If you need to, go back to the passage. Valuable seconds you don't need to spend reading those directions. You know what to do. On the reading section, only. Don't get confused. I think that's the last.
There's one. Okay, so in a second, we're going to ask you to flip that page and start
Not
our
yet.
practice. It's not yet. Did you want to like go through them together? Okay, so to recap just a little bit, when we ask you to turn the page, what's the first thing you're going to do? Not read the directions. Okay, what are you going to read first?
Question.
Yeah, you're going to read through the questions, okay? You're going to get an idea.
Lauren King, please come to Mr. Bowman's office. Lauren King, please come to Mr. Bowman's office.
Lauren King? Good. Good to go. All right. Awesome. You're going to know what the ACT wants you to look for. Again, you're reading with a purpose. It's not the same kind of reading you do for English class or on your own, okay? If you see a fetch type of question that says, hey, there's something in line 24, what are you going to do when you see that? Line 24 and be like, hey, number 1, ask me to go here. So that way when you're reading through, you're going to stop your reading, you're going to go answer number 24 right away. Okay, not just reading the questions, make sure you read the options, maybe look for some keywords. What's the one that we For when we read in our ACT class together, there was like galactic cannibalism was one of the words used in one of the options in the question. If you see a word like that, like you should recognize that that's going to be important if you see a word like galactic cannibalism in the reading. Right? Read the questions, then go through and read the actual passage.
You're going to get 2 passages. You have to read them in order that they come in.
Mrs. Higgs, if you could come to the main
If
office.
you know
Mrs. Higgs,
off the top of your
please
head
come to
which
the
one
main
you're better at, try doing that one first. What are some other strategies? Annotate. What else? My favorite. Yes, circle in the book before you bubble into the answer sheet. There is an answer sheet. It's the last page of this packet, so you can just go to the last page and rip it off if you want to. And then you have the answer sheet. So it's the second last page. But you can Now, as I tell my classes, if I use this sheet, reading is test 3, and since this is a full answer sheet, you might get confused. You may want to draw an arrow to test 3 right now, so you don't get confused. Test 3. Also, because we're only doing 2 sections, you need to pay attention to the test number. Sorry, it's going to go confusing. Does that make sense to everyone? So the point here is to try some strategies. This is the time to try strategies on these practices. On the ACT, you want to know already by that time what works for you. All of these strategies may not work for you. Every person's different, everyone learns differently. So you need to try them out now to figure out what does work for you. So you're prepared in every aspect by the time you take that ACT. So try them now, okay? Ready, Mr. Whitmore?
One thing I want to show on setting up the timer, it's really important that you wear a watch to the ACT event. During the practice event, I was walking around looking and seeing how much time, if the classroom was all the same time or not, if somebody was running ahead or behind. and I noticed that one teacher was using their watch time, which was five whole minutes different than the clock time on the wall. So if you don't know which one they're using, and you think you have 5 extra minutes or 5 fewer minutes, then you're in trouble. So take what time, the amount of time that they give you, 35 minutes, and base it off of your watch time. Does that make sense? So that you're not confused as to what they're doing. Yes,
Can you just keep track of what time the clock says when you start?
that would work as well, but just be careful to not get confused because you're going to see that time on the board right under the clock.
You must ask them to change it as well.
You're the freaking man.
You could also bring it. All right.
You guys ready? Any questions? 17 and a half minutes, ready to go. Come on.
4.5 minutes left.
Seconds left, guys. Use that time wisely. Make sure that you don't leave anything blank. Okay, that's time. That's down. Hey, some things that I saw there that were really good, maybe a little bit different from the things that I see in my own class. Nobody laid their heads down. You guys were diligent throughout the whole 17 and a half minutes, which is great. Whether you know it or not, that diligence is going to gain you points, even if it's just like one composite point by the end of the day, which could like be the difference. potentially in scholarship money, right? Another thing that was cool was that even like on the day when I was practicing the proctoring the ACT back in January, like you guys were continuously flipping back and forth. I didn't even see that much flipping and like diligent researching for the answers on that day. So that's good. Good job. You see anything with that?
Well, I was just saying, let me ask you, why do you think, we only have an hour together. Why did we spend 17 and a half minutes taking a test? You could do that on your own. Well, one. Could you do it? Okay. What? Practice and feedback. The reading section especially is all about practicing. How do you get better at reading? You read. How do you get faster at reading? You read. It's all about practicing. It is valuable. It's the most valuable thing you can do. Read more, and you will do better on the reading section. Okay? So, we're going to go over the answers.
Yep. Here are the answers for you. Two last things before we leave. We are going to go over the answers, obviously. And then I'm going to show you how to take that raw score, right? That score that you will have in a percentage, and turn that into a scale score out of 36. Stop the ACT.
21 is C, is in cow. 22, J is in Jolly Rancher. 23, A is in applesauce. 24, J is in Jerry. 25, C is in cauliflower. 26, F as in Frankfurter. 27, C as in carrot. 28, J as in joy. 29, A as in, oh, it's boring. Anteater. Anteater. Perfect. 30, F as in fallacy. 31, B as in barracuda. 32, H as in hooray, you did it. 33, D as in dynamite. 34, J as in jalapeno. Good one. 35, B as in bus. Yep, bus. That's not my best answer. 36, G as in goop. 37, B as in butter. Who doesn't like butter? 38, F as in no. As in fairy. 39, A as in antelope. 40, F as in ferocious.
Anybody got 100%? Anyone get 36? Oh my gosh. That's okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. You would have been in the top like 0.2%.
Okay, now let me ask you, now that you've scored yourself, what strategies did you find worked best for you?
Just to read it.
Huh?
Just to read it.
Okay, so you probably maybe didn't do that before. To read it, yeah, that probably works better. What other strategies worked best for you? Read the questions first, you know, to look for. What else? The fetch questions? Did you annotate for those fetch questions?
Well, I like marked where they were.
Yeah. Perfect. Did you find any strategies that you thought, that's not for me? It's okay. Yeah, the rest.
I just did all the tough ones at once.
Sorry.
I just did all the tough ones at once. That was like
Okay, that worked well for you? So you said? So you did all the fetch questions together.
Oh, nice. All right. Good stuff.
Yeah, cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
Did anybody do the write like a couple words off each paragraph to like remind yourself what it was about?
That worked for you?
For like out of all the tips that we give you, maybe other than like the mark answers in the booklet and then transfer those over to the answer sheet. That one works the best for me, especially when it's stuff that's really boring, like the humanities piece. It helps me a lot to like kind of contextualize what that little paragraph is about. So if you didn't,
Be so careful, because I came back in time to try to take one section with you guys, and I was so involved in what I was doing, I skipped the first two questions that were on this page. So be careful that you don't do something like that, because then you have to go back and erase and rewrite all your answers, and that takes a ton of time.
So we're going to show you the conversion charts. All right.
Okay, so you guys also have this, and you might listen up especially close for this part because it's kind of confusing. The first step that I need you to do is, if you have a calculator, take that out, or your handy-dandy smartphone, or a dumb phone. Access whatever calculator you have. Find the percentage of what you got correct on this. So, let's say, for example,
It's out of 20, not 40. Don't say you got 17 out of 40.
yeah, it's out of 20.
Yeah, 20.
So let's say Quentin Lee got 18 of these questions correct today. You will take 18 divided by 20 and come up with, my phone is a little bit less smart. Is it nice? Okay. So, if he came out with a 90%,
You look over to the very right.
oh my God! It's not my fault. If he came up with 90%, here's the reading section over to the right. You also have this sheet in your packet, so follow along both ways. He got a 90%, so he'll move one box over to the left, telling him he'd probably get about, we can project that he would get about 36 out of 40 questions right on the reading section of the ACT, which translates to about a 35.
34, whatever.
34, whatever. You guys get the idea. Let's say
Yeah,
Brent
70%.
Harris didn't do quite as well as Quentin Lee. He got a 70% correct. We'll go one box to the left. He'd probably be able to, assume that he could get 28 out of 40 correct on the real ACT, or a 26 out of 36. It doesn't translate proportionally, because, and if anyone in here is in statistics, they calculate the scores of the ACT based on the other people taking the ACT at the same time, which is weird to score a test that way, but anyway, this is a pretty good approximation of how well you would plan on doing on the ACT. Okay.
Anyone need help figuring that out? Anyone confused? Start come around and help you. So the more and more practice you can do, the better. We find practice tests all the time, just online, just searching it. It may take a little while. You may have to go through some stuff that's not what you want, but you can find this stuff online. You can find old practice tests online. Do that.
USA Test Prep. All of you have
USA
to
Test
Test
Prep.
Prep.
They have 4 full reading tests.
So, before I lose your guys' contention, all together, before you start backing up, we had you guys sign in at the beginning. If you guys didn't put your email down and you would like to come up here, I will email either tonight or shortly after this, not only this spreadsheet, which it has some tools to help you track your data as you move forward practicing, but also the entire practice test from which Ms. Reeve and myself pulled the questions that we used today.
There'll be 2 more practice.
And the PowerPoint that has our writing and our English tips on it as well. So if you didn't give us your email and you would like that stuff,
One of you didn't sign in. There's 3 of you who did not sign in.
Come sign in for us.
hey, thanks for listening.
If anybody wants to stay and talk about why those answers are what they are and talk through that test, I have time and I'd be willing to stay.